I claim the Salt Throne.
Valamogulis, everybody, is Don Willie back again for another edition of Ice and Fire Opinions. And yeah, we're back again with Fire and Blood, more Fire and Blood. And one day I'm actually going to get this damn chat thing to work the way it's supposed to. This thing is killing me right now. Besides, it wants to shift over and do things that it's not supposed to. But yeah, man, you already know what it is. Anyway, shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Focus, damn you. All right, yeah. Shout out to Big E, Clay L, Springer. We got Sir Stefan from Scepter Shayna's Secrets. We have Renee M of House Stark. We have Maria Lind. Hey, what's going on? Long time no see. Yeah, and so see, I got Fire and Blood. It's not Fire and Blood. This one is World of Ice and Fire. Fire and Blood is over here, and hopefully the audio is sounding good. I went out. I got a new microphone. Been trying to make some damn adjustments to get this thing to sound the way that it should. So hopefully there is no static right now, because yeah, this whole issue with the staticky sound was really starting to piss me off. But anyways, let's get into the good book by George R. R. Martin, and we'll talk about the reign of King Aegon the First and his sisters, and we're gonna be talking about the wars, which it's not really wars plural. It's really one big war and then a couple of smaller minor conflicts that happened kind of during the beginning of Aegon's reign. Shout out to Bernie. Oh my god. Yeah, so this was the one thing I found kind of not necessarily confusing about the book, but something I thought that it should have been in a different section. Um, and that was oh yeah, you know what? And shout out to DJ. Happy New Year! I totally forgot. Yeah, last time I talked to you guys, it was 2017. It's 2018 now. But one of the things that kind of got me about the whole section of the Reign of the Dragon, um, was that it started off really with the Dornish War, and then it went to the actual, him governing the realm. So the Dornish War takes up pretty much half of this section, and it's, let's see. So the Dornish War officially lasted for about maybe 12 years. You know what? I got the book here. I didn't have the book last time, so let's see here. And again, this isn't to go through each and every single point in the books or in this particular book. Just kind of to give my own thoughts on this. So now, mind you, this is all right. So this is after Aegon's second coronation in Old Town, right? So he had two coronations. He had one when he at first got to the place that they would call King's Landing, and then after he, officially claimed himself as the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, where he had already defeated six out of the seven. Then he went to Old Town and had another coronation, and that's where this picks up, right? So his reign is 1 AC to 37 AC. So officially, he was the king for 36 years, and then the war I think took place from like 2 BC, and then to 1 AC. Shout out to Grand's Wing. It was popping. All right. All right. Let's see here. So I just want to make sure I have the exact quote. Well, not quote, but how long it said this damn thing lasted. I think it said until 12. And 12 is. No, else. Yada 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 yada. Okay, so Dornish War ended in 13 AC. So it was about the first third of his reign. And essentially, the Dornish War ended after the death of Rhaenys, and not just the death of, well, no. It's not that it ended after the death of Rhaenys. Rhaenys kind of reignited the whole Dornish War, and it's interesting the way that it talks about in the book that like when Aegon decided to go back to Dorne, Dornish weren't around, and every time he would go to a different castle, it was like they'd make the people submit there, and it was like, all right, we're gonna hold down the castle. And then the moment that Aegon left and most of the forces pulled out, the Dornish pop up, and they're just taking out everybody that they possibly can. They're torturing different lords, and making games of whoever can keep the lords, or whoever their captives are, who can keep them alive the longest while torturing them to death. Which, man, that's brutal. But it's war. What do you expect, right? And so, officially the War with Dorne ended in 14 AC, and basically what happened was Maria Martell died. Her son Nymor took over. At this point, he was about 60 plus years old, and he sends his daughter and a delegation to King's Landing, and it's like, hey, look, can we stop this? You can have the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. You can even call yourself whatever you want, but just know that you're not going to rule Dorne at all. And the other counselors there, Visenya, Oris Baratheon at this point was no longer like really on the because they didn't have officially the small council yet. The title of small council hadn't come around until later in the reign of Jaehaerys the First. So Aegon is taking advice from all of these different people who he had made his different counselors or whatever, and for the most part, they're either saying go back to war, or they're saying to send Nymor's daughter. They're talking about like all different kinds of like horrible things to do to her, and Aegon is like, nah, we're not gonna do that. At this point, he had been fighting this particular war for like more than 10 years, or no, not more than 10 years, because it started in 4 AC and ended, so round about 9 years. And he's just kind of like, yo, man, you know what? I'm done with it. I'm done with it. But he was going to he thought about reigniting the war until he got a letter from Nymor Martell, and he read the letter uh, without actually reading it out loud. He just, he sat on the Iron Throne and, you know, did all that. And when after he finished reading the letter, they said that his hand was bleeding. Now, you got to think about it. Iron Throne is made out of nothing but swords. He could have been gripping onto one of the swords so tightly while he's reading that letter that his hand wound up bleeding afterward. Which it makes sense. But after this, he flies to Dragonstone, and when he comes back from Dragonstone, he's like, "All right, fine, I accept the peace proposal." He signs a treaty, and that basically ends the war with Dorne, at least during his reign. So, hell, the signal for the Yankees. Hey. Watch how you talk about the Yankees, man. It's my team. Anyway, that's the end. That's not where things begin. So it basically begins because, before there was a war with Dorne, they tried to negotiate for about a year. They sent envoys back and forth. Aegon and some maesters and some other people actually went to Dorne, and they just went there and was like, "Look, hey, you can join the realm. We got all these different benefits for you. Just become part of it. Look, we're all in the same land space anyway. I already got all the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. You might as well just join up. Everything be cool." Moray Martell's like, no, nah, not going for it. And the fact that they let this go on for about a year, and I think after it had went on for so long, people were probably like, "Yo, man, Aegon, she's trying to play you. She got you here, spending a bunch of time, negotiating with her for nothing. She's not going to be part of the kingdom. So you might as well just come and burn it all down." So again, they sent in the different factions, Stormlanders, the Reach. They didn't send any Northerners through. But either way, point is, that they definitely, tried to do things peacefully first, and the Dornish were not trying to hear it. So, if you're not going to have peace, then you're going to have war. And ultimately, you had Rhaenys, who winds up getting killed by a scorpion bolt, and they actually have a pretty detailed picture in here. Show you guys the picture there. Nice little illustration. Right. And it is debated as to whether or not Rhaenys actually died immediately, or if she was possibly tortured, because the castle that she went to at the time was called Hellholt, and Hellholt was specifically known for being a little more brutal than other castles in Dorne in terms of what they would do with prisoners. So there's a lot of speculation as to what happened because Rhaenys body was never recovered. So we don't know what happened. You know. Oh, shout out to AU Pack Mill. What's going on, man? Glad to see you here. All right. Let's see here. Oh, another nice little engagement. Because we could go on probably for hours about the Aegon's War with Dawn. Sorry, Dorn. I don't know why I said it sounded like Dawn for a sec there. But his war with them obviously lasted for years. Another kind of mini skirmish that was taking place during Aegon's reign was a skirmish with the Iron Islands. So after the death of Harren and his sons, Iron Islands are in chaos now. They don't have a king anymore, and so they're all fighting. You got a bunch of different factions. So I want to go real quick to one of them. Where are we at? Let's see here. So you got Lodos, who was a priest who claimed to be a son of the drowned god. And his story is very interesting. Now, his story is also detailed very much so here in the world of Ice and Fire. And I think that it might actually be even a little more detailed in here, or it's about the same. There is a little bit of overlap in terms of information. There are a couple of smaller bits of information that are given in the world of Ice and Fire that are not so much fleshed out in Fire and Blood, because Fire and Blood is more heavily based on the Targaryens themselves and things that are happening immediately kind of in their vicinity, right? But you have the whole thing with Lodos, who was priest of the drowned god, who claims to be son of the drowned god, and he's talking about how he's going to bring down dragons, etc., etc. And when things don't work out the way that he told everyone they would, he stuffs a bunch of rocks into his robe and says, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to the bottom of the ocean to talk to my father, the drowned god." And it is said that thousands followed him. Now, that's kind of crazy to me because the Iron Islands is not a huge, it's not a huge, what is it, archipelago? Yeah, not a huge archipelago. I couldn't imagine, it would be the craziest thing to actually have thousands of people. Oh man, shout out to Kevin Cleary. Had to say hi and bye. But thank you for showing up. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that you had thousands of people all leave or commit mass suicide. That is absolutely crazy. They all committed mass suicide because they followed this one kind of I guess for lack of a better term, he is a cult leader. So, And a shout out to Sonny Frank and my brother JD. What's going on? Let's see here. Who else did you have here? So you have Corin Volmark of Harlaw, whose grandmother was a sister of Harren's grandfather. So interesting for that one. Now everyone knows House Harlaw, as being the house of Theon and Asha's mother. So house that we're familiar with, but House Volmark, not so much. So I'm guessing that they are some, a minor house on Harlaw. Oh, Urtak! What is going on? I didn't even know Urtak was in here. I need to talk to you about some artwork if possible. So yeah, after all had been said and done, Aegon comes around. He's like, "All right, we got to put a stop to this. This is some BS. You guys are out here, just killing each other. We can't have that." And so he tells the Iron Islands, "You guys got to elect someone to be your ruler." Now, first, people were suggesting that maybe they should be vassals under the Tullys, which that would have been very interesting. That would have made for a much different dynamic in the current story if Aegon had made them vassals of the Riverlands, as opposed to the Iron Islands being its own thing. Shout out to Cardinal Doomsday. Yeah, so that would have been a pretty interesting dynamic, because had they had been vassals for the past 300 years, I don't know that we would have gotten the whole stuff with the Greyjoy rebellions, and damn, what the hell is Theon's father's name again? Goddamn, Balon Greyjoy. I don't know if Balon Greyjoy would have tried to proclaim himself as king of the Iron Islands and take the salt, the salt throne. Because, as you guys already know, I claim the salt throne, damn. My right. But they did choose a Greyjoy for their overlord, and that is Vickon Greyjoy, Lord Reaper of Pike. And for those of you who do not know, basically, if you are the ruling, the ruling head of the Greyjoy family, then you are Lord Reaper of Pike. Even though at that particular point, I'm pretty sure Aegon told him, "Okay, look, yeah, you're part of the Seven Kingdoms, but you guys are not allowed to go reaving and pillaging and all that other good stuff. Not unless you have my leave as king." All right. Yeah. And why can I not read that name? Is that assassin? Oh man, you know what? Forgive me, intelligence. Oh no, it's not new scenery. Sometimes I just do stuff in different parts of the house, and today I decided not to be in my normal spot. All right. Oh, we also got to talk about, what is it? The sisters, three sisters in the bite. So, yeah, you have, let's see here, Marla Sutherland, who was proclaimed as Queen of the Sisters, and then after what's it call it? Aegon came around. and basically made everyone submit. Uh, the men from the sisters decided, okay, you know what? Um, yeah, I am not messing around with the dude with the dragons. They chained her up, sent her on her way, and this was kind of messed up because they exiled the queen for 5 years. Hold on, I just want to get this straight for everybody because I know they exiled her for 5 years and imprisoned her. So I'm like, why in the world would you exile and imprison her? That was the crazy thing. And then it says after that, her tongue was removed, and she spent the remainder of her life with the Silent Sisters, tending to the noble dead. Wow. Yeah, that is mm-mm-mm. Yeah, that is. I don't even know what to say about that. I don't even know. What, it was like you banished and imprisoned her, and then after 5 years, like cut off her tongue and make her part of the Silent Sisters. Um, I don't even know what to say to that one at all. That is yeah, yeah, wow. Mm-mm-mm. All right, now this is one thing I definitely wanted to talk about. One thing I definitely wanted to talk about. This is the part of the three heads. It says three heads had a dragon, governance under Aegon the First. So it's kind of weird because they talk a lot about Visenya and Rhaenys. Now, mind you, they they did talk about they did talk about Aegon, but we don't get much of his personality. And honestly speaking, um, yeah, we get a lot more of the personalities of his sister wives than we do of him. And hold on, it said DW. Who did that happen to? Sorry, that happened to Marla Sunderland. She was the one who they uh exiled, imprisoned, and then cut off her tongue. So, and this is after the after the men of the sisters named her as queen, and then when the dragons came, they were like, "Okay, yeah, sorry, you're not queen anymore, and we're taking all your shit from you." So, yeah, really kind of messed up stuff. All right, so let's see here. So, one thing they say that they like doing the wives, queens, sisters of Aegon, they like making matches, uh, and this is interesting because this kind of shows how much of the nobility is actually related to each other, or at least should be related to each other at this point in the story. So you had one match that was Brackens and Blackwoods, right? So it was like a son and a daughter of each house had to marry each other. So there's that one, right? Let's see here. What's another one? Let's see. Ronald Aaron of the Erie married a daughter of Torrance Stark. Lauren Lannister's son married a red wine girl. Let's see here. Three triplets from Tarth arranged for marriages to House Corbray, House Hightower, and House Harlaw. Let's see here. Yeah, and I mean, a bunch of these different matches and all that. And it also says that basically uh, the sister wives did about as much. They did as much as anyone until like Queen Alicent. So you didn't have queens that had this much power until Lorraine and Jaehaerys. Um, and so another interesting thing about this, was the fact that it was Visenya who started the Kingsguard, which that was another kind of crazy thing because it's the Kingsguard, but Visenya seemed like she was the most not warlike, but she was the Visenya basically was the best warrior out of the three. She was the one that was gonna hold it down if anything came about. And during the war with Dorn, why don't I'm sorry, I can't speak right now. During the war with Dorn, uh, she advised Aegon to go out in mail and in armor, basically like wherever he went. And he was like, "Nah, I'm good. I got my guards with me. I'm good." And now this is also a story that's told in the world of Ice and Fire, how uh, before he can even say anything or before his guards could move, she took out Dark Sister and slashed him across the face with it, showing like your guards are nothing. And so she was the one who came up with the Kingsguard, and she picked the members of the Kingsguard. So I want to look for that one real quick because that one to me was kind of interesting. Did I go back? Yeah, okay. I totally went back. Sorry, trying to flip through, and just so you guys see, this is a kind of a dense book. Unlike the World of Ice and Fire, the World of Ice and Fire is a big book, right? But it's not so dense in terms of words. It's more pictures. Now, mind you, yes, it does have a lot of words, right? Don't ever get it twisted, because we all know how much George likes writing. But uh, there are also a lot of pictures. Practically every page has pictures, so obviously that's going to mean less in the way of words. Whereas in this book, there might be a picture maybe like once every 10 pages or so. All right, so I do want to look up real quick. All right, here we go. Oh, shout out to Kat. Happy New Year to you. All right, so here are the names of the original 7 from the Kingsguard as chosen by Queen Visenya. So we have Sir Richard Root. I don't know what the hell I got Ronald from. Sir Addison Hill, Bastard of Cornfield. So if anyone knows who the hell House Cornfield is, maybe you can fill me on that one. Sir Gregor Good, Sir Griffith Good, his brother, Sir Humphrey the Mummer. So that seems a little interesting that you have someone who is essentially, I mean, they're described as being an actor because that's what a mummer is. Sir Robin Darkland, called Dark Robin. Why he was called Dark Robin, I don't know. It doesn't give an explanation for that one. And Sir Corlys Valerian, Lord Commander. So, for those of you who know about So for those of you who know about the name Corlys Valerion, you'll know that there was a famous Corlys Valerion who is called the Sea Snake. Um, that is not the same person. This one is he wouldn't be a great grandfather. He's related somehow, but I'm not you know yeah, he's not I don't think he's like a grandfather or great grandfather or anything like that. Because the Kingsguard, Visenya specifically modeled the Kingsguard vows on the Night's Watch vows with the whole thing of giving up lands and titles, etc., etc. So that one, yeah. So I don't believe that he already had any children. Shout out to my boy Sir LT Giles. What's going on, man? That's my brother right there. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, so it says the two of the Kingsguard died under the service of Aegon, which was pretty interesting. Um, but it doesn't go into like the hows and all that. I mean, it's funny though because like this is actually pretty short on details in terms of anything that he had done. Hold on. So I'm just gonna give you some souls for one, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So essentially, altogether, when they talk about the governance of Aegon, it's essentially about 8.5 pages, which is a lot shorter than you would expect for, something about the first king of Westeros. But again, there isn't much information specifically on Aegon. But there is something specific, or a couple of things that I would like to touch on with regards to the reign of Aegon. And this is something I said I was going to talk about before, and this is how he may have almost bankrupted the realm. So let's go back to Aegon's conquest. So one thing he does after all of the different battles, he makes everyone give up their swords, takes it back to the Aegon fort because at this point there was no Red Keep, and decides to use Balerion's fire and have blacksmiths and all that, turn it into the Iron Throne. Right? So now these are the ones that could be used. He couldn't use everything because, Field of Fire, Siege of Harrenhal, and maybe a couple other instances. Couldn't really use the swords. They had already been melted and twisted and all that stuff. So, he used the swords that he could. So I'm guessing the remainder of the Lannister forces, the remainder of whoever was loyal to to the Dorndynes and the Stormlands, the remainder of whoever was from the Reach that didn't immediately come over, the swords of the Northerners, and so after this, they said that he spent a long time going on royal progresses. So for those of you who do not know, a royal progress is basically when a king or a queen they go on a tour of all of their lands, and they go and they stay at different lords, places and have that lord host them in their castle or the great hall or whatever may have you, right? And it said that Aegon brought with him, and I want to go back because I want to make sure I get this right. And who knows? This might have actually been in Sons of the Dragon and in not in whatchamacallit, not during the reign of Aegon or governance of Aegon. Because one thing I will say, George did a very good job in terms of making the different reigns flow into each other. All right, let's see here. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. All right, so this is the other half he devoted to his endless royal progress, taking his court from one castle to another, guesting with each of his great lords in turn. Goldtown and the Eyrie, Harrenhal, Riverrun, Lannisport, and Casterly Rock, Craighall, Old Oak, High Garden, Old Town, the Arbor, Hornhill, Ashford, Storm's End, Evenfall, and Evenfall, had the honor of hosting His Grace many times. Let's see here. But Aegon could and would turn up almost anywhere, sometimes with as many as 1,000 knights and lords and ladies in his train. So I just want you to think about that, right? It says he could show up at any time, anywhere, with about 1,000 people, and you couldn't really, refuse to when the king showed up and like, hey, yeah, man, I'm coming through and I got all these people with me. We're gonna be staying here for a little while. So imagine, right? Just a few years before this, depending on who you were, if you had fought against Aegon, you had lost probably a couple thousand troops. All of their weapons had been taken. So this means now you got to rebuild your army. You got to rebuild all of the weapons for the army. But where are you going to get the money from? Because now you got to pay taxes to someone you never had to pay taxes to before. And now the king shows up, probably not only to collect some of his taxes during his royal progress, but he shows up with 1,000 people and says, hey, we're going to be staying here for a while. And so you got to make sure you treat the king and his 1,000 people really nice for however long they're going to be there. Now, it could be, a few days, could be a few weeks, could be a month. How well is that going to fare on a lord who probably lost a lot during the war against him? And he's doing this all across the Seven Kingdoms, with the exception of Dorne. He's going north, he's going south, he's going east, he's going west, he's going everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, man, how in the world was the Seven Kingdoms not damn near destitute after all of this? I mean, because, yeah, okay, you had the system of serfdom and all that, but, basically, yeah, basically, he almost had the Seven Kingdoms enslaved to him. if you think about it. Because you're not going to have money as a lord to really field any more armies at this point. Um, and not only that, you're not going to have, a bunch of resources at your disposal, because remember, you during the during Aegon's conquest, you had to provide provisions for the army and the people who were still at home. Okay, granted, your army might have been decimated to a certain extent, and maybe you have some veterans who return home and now they're going to be farmers again. But if the seasons had went bad, you guys weren't able to harvest crops, and you weren't able to really to keep livestock around, or whatever may have you. Oh man, you guys are gonna be done for. It'd be a wrap, you know. So yeah, Aegon did this throughout his reign, except for like the last maybe like 4 or 5 years of his reign, where he decided he was going to stay in King's Landing, because at this point King's Landing had become an actual city, whereas King's Landing originally wasn't. It was a small, fishing village that had been under the reign of a bunch of different kings before this, and it wasn't really anything. But by the time you get to like maybe 30 AC, now it's a real town, and Aegon, is now building a larger version of the Aegon fort, and building walls and all that, and turning it into kind of the skeleton of what would eventually become the Red Keep. And I mean, don't get me wrong. George is a brilliant writer when it comes to telling the story, but there are certain details I look at and I'm just like, yo, wait, hold on, hold on. Like, how is the entire Seven Kingdoms not destitute right now? I mean, personally, I would think that in order for things to be set right again, Aegon probably would have had to go to war to plunder other places just so Westeros wouldn't go broke. So, yeah, man, I'm just surprised, man. you know. Mm-mm-mm. Anyway, what are you guys talking about in the chat room? Cardinal Doomsday says doing an Elizabeth the First on his subjects. Yeah, essentially, you know, Elizabeth the First damn near bankrupted England. If it wasn't for the fact that that she happened to win the war with Spain and them having to kind of pay tribute, England would have been done for. England was about to be a wrap. There was two things that saved England from being basically from probably being taken over by another country. One, her winning the war with Spain, and two, the colonial conquest of America. And again, just like I stated, truthfully speaking, Aegon, the only way Westeros shouldn't be broke is by having new colonies and going and taking over some other place in order to get money. Shout out to Heavy Micro Grow, and also Blood Falcon Fantastic. All right. Let's see here. Trying to see if there's anything else that I can really touch on in terms of this stuff, because I mean, like I said, the reign of Aegon and all this stuff isn't a huge part of the book. Like I said, it's about 9 pages for the actual governance, and then the Wars of Aegon is 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's about maybe 10.5 pages. So altogether, you know, all of Aegon's reign, and we're talking about like from the time he got crowned at the Starry Sept in Old Town to his death, altogether about 20 pages out of this book. So not very heavy in terms of not very heavy in terms of detail. Now, mind you, there was a lot of stuff that Aegon got done during his reign. Not as much as Jaehaerys, and like I said, when I get into Jaehaerys, I'm probably gonna have to make that 3 separate videos because the Jaehaerys stuff. Hold on, I'm gonna go through that right now, just for my own edification, if that is the correct word. Let's see. Is there a table of contents? All right, here we go. Holy shit. So Jaehaerys is about 100 and something pages. Hold on, I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. Holy shit. Yeah, man, this is absolutely outrageous. Yo. Because it doesn't, like, for some of the stuff, it doesn't say exactly where it starts in terms of, like, the particular king. So I'm just trying to make sure that I got the right. Yo, because I remember listening to the audio book and thinking to myself, like, yo, when does this end? Oh, let's see here. Succession. Damn it. Hold on. There's got to be something that says exactly how long his reign was. Okay, alright, so alright. Yeah, sorry. This yo, listen, man. It's over 100 pages. Yeah, his part alone, just for Jaehaerys, is over 100 pages. And I'm just trying to see. All right, so man, oh man, and where does it start? Yeah, the 3 Bryants. All right, so 107. No, sorry, not over 100 pages. Over 220 something pages, or 200. It's about 230 pages. Yeah. So out of this big book, hold on. This section here that I have in my, this section right here is all Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys is literally about a third of the book by himself. So, yeah. I said 3 videos for Jaehaerys. It might be 4. It might actually be 4. And by this point, anyone who is watching the replay has probably turned this off long ago. But I do want to get into questions if you guys want to talk. So let me put that in the chat. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm missing some of my regular folks, but this isn't my regular time, so I wouldn't be surprised, that not everybody is here. Holy shit. Holy shit. Kraken is in the building. Along with my man IC Spots. I didn't even see you in there. Holy shit. Oh man, and my man JD said he had to bounce, man. Peace. Oh man, oh man. Let's see here. Blood Falcon Fantastic says, do you think Aegon is like Augustus Caesar, where he probably was a worse king than historians portray? I think George wrote Fire and Blood as a maester so he can twist the truth like historians do. Yeah, yo, listen, I'll be honest with you. Like, I don't know if you have checked out any of my other videos, because I did do a video particularly on Aegon, the first of my opinions on him, like around the time when not Fire and Blood, when what's the other one? The one that originally had Sons of the Dragon in it. I was like, yo, Aegon was a horrible father, and this is even worse now that I'm getting a look at stuff that happened as him being king. And shout out to Fenn International Boxing Channel. Thank you for joining me. Glad you could be here live. Yeah, yo, listen. I'll say this again. Aegon to me was an absolutely horrible king. The realm should have been bankrupted, right? Look, I get the whole thing of I get the whole thing of him wanting to make sure that there couldn't be any kind of rebellion fostered, right? But look, he had already accepted the oaths of fealty, and people had already kind of been used to, look, if we have a lord and we already swear the oath of fealty to him, you don't go back on that and decide to rise up again. It just wasn't good business. It wasn't a good practice, because a lot of the system was maintained on the faith that if you gave your word about something, then your word actually did mean something. So that was, like I said, between him taking all of their weapons, to mind you, yeah, okay, you could say that it wasn't all the weapons. They could have had maces and morning stars, and he didn't take their bows and arrows and whatever may have you. But again, if your swords are your main weapon, and now you have, yes, you could say, the trade of blacksmithing might have boomed after this, but you gotta go and mine. You gotta go now and and mine more sources of iron. You know, it's going to take time unless there are just, thousands of blacksmiths working day and night. It's going to take time to go and create new swords for an army, and even raise a new army now, because how many men were lost during the war, you know and then his whole thing with the damn royal progress is, yeah, yeah, I'm taking 1,000 people with me to come and feast at some lord's hall for however long I feel like. And yeah, you already know they're not going to refuse him. Okay, they're not going to refuse him because he's got a big ass dragon that he's riding on, and everyone knows about the Field of Fire, and everyone knows about Harrenhal. You're not going to do that. So yeah, honestly speaking, it's a wonder that Westeros wasn't in financial ruin from Aegon's conquest. You know, and it would have been totally Aegon's fault. Let's see. Cardinal Doomsday said, "I was expecting you yesterday afternoon, my time. Why did you change?" Um, I changed it because I was sick the past few days. Yeah, I was a bit under the weather, and rather than me just cancel altogether, I was like, you know what, let me move it to Saturday. I should be better by then, and yeah, I'm better now. So here I am. So hopefully I will be back to hopefully I'll be back to my regular scheduled program this coming Thursday. Shout out to my man Dan Raymond. Yeah, surprised to see you here on a Saturday, man. I thought you'd be out playing ball or something, man. All right, let's see. Blood Falcon, fantastic. Says thank you for asking my question. I'm a new fan. Keep up the good work. Thank you for being here. All right. Let's see. We got any more questions from the chat? Otherwise, I will wrap this up and get prepared for the next one, the Sons of the Dragon. I guess I'll probably be doing Sons of the Dragon. I'll do Aenys and Maegor as two separate videos, because I do believe, even though I hated Aenys was the worst. But you know what? While I'm waiting to see if anyone has any questions, yo, what is this guy's name? Aegon, horrible father, absolutely horrible father. Did not prepare his. He didn't prepare Aenys to be king, and it seems like he gave zero fucks about Maegor, like at all. It was, you know, and interestingly enough, so if you guys read in the part where it talks about like all of the different lords of Dragonstone, there was a Maegor of Dragonstone, and there also was an Aryan, and in fact Aryan was Aegon's father. So yeah, man, it was yeah, but Aegon was an absolutely horrible father. Perhaps Maegor wouldn't have been the absolute asshole that he was if his pops cared about him. But I think his dad really didn't do much with him, because he wasn't a fan of Visenya that much. Yes, he married her, but like it says, he married her out of duty. You know, um, and I'm just, oh my god, man. Like, the more I think about Aegon, the more I'm like, yo, this dude was just fucking horrible. It's like the way that he's talked about in the book, in terms of like it being from the Maester's perspective, where the small folk loved him, and he did this great, and everyone loved him, and when it talks about how Rainey's, like, since Rainey's loved music, and you had all these singers who were trying to gain her favor. They would go and make these different songs about House Targaryen. Um, it's like, okay, well, yeah, people thought that he was a good king because he had all these people singing about him in different taverns and all that. But I'm like, yo, man, the dude was fucking horrible. Aegon, Aegon, Aegon the Conqueror was the worst, man. He was absolutely horrible. He had no business being the ruler of anything. And honestly speaking, uh, really Visenya, if you really dig deep into it, yes, Aegon had the final word on a lot of stuff. But really, if you really, really dig deep down and look at the subtext of all of it, Visenya was the real person who ran everything. It's just that, because of the way things worked in the society that they lived in, Aegon was the one that really had to put his stamp on everything. But really it was Visenya who ran it. It was like, yeah, Aegon did do stuff. Yes, Aegon was the guy who, it's like, if Aegon's around, we're gonna ask him. But they specifically stated that there was a lot of time where Aegon was not around. So, Oh wow, man. So, Carnal Doomsday said it was 102, huh? All right, what? I keep on forgetting if you are in New Zealand or Australia. I'm thinking New Zealand because I think you're not too far from Mark from Enchantment of Eternity. So I'm thinking New Zealand, but correct me if I am wrong. Let's see here. Let's see here. So Blood Falcon Fantastic says, I do want to hear your ideas on why the Faith didn't put up much of a fight against Aegon. He was a polygamist inbreeder. Let's see here. Evidently, that was a huge issue in Future Kings. Okay, so the Faith of the Seven, you had a high septon, and mind you, this is another thing that is kind of interesting about the way George does religion and religious figures in his book. So the Faith of the Seven has the High Septon, who is like their version of the Pope. And unlike the Pope, though, the High Septons don't get names. You just get the title of High Septon, and the way that they figure out which High Septon they're talking about, it's basically like they have to have certain descriptions. So it's like, the High Septon during, the reign of Aegon the Third, and he was the fat one, and that's how you know what High Septon they're talking about made a certain decree. So basically, you had the High Septon when Aegon had first came around, who, he went, he fasted and had a vision that, he fasted and he prayed and he had a vision that if he went up against Aegon and the dragons, the Aegon would come and burn down Old Town and then also get rid of the faith. So he was like, you know what? I'm going to let him be. Now, mind you, that's one High Septon. High Septons die. Not everyone agrees with what that High Septon did. And so later on, when you get different High Septons, they're like, no, the faith, whatchamacallit, not the faith, the seven-pointed star, which is their holy book, like their Bible. The seven-pointed star says this, and this, that, and the third, and we are not going to accept this. I'm the new high septon, and I'm saying blah 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 blah. And that's basically why for future kings it was a problem. Um, and in fact, they went through shoot like when you get to Magor, we're going to talk about how long it actually took before he was able to find someone to crown him king. So that was a crazy thing, man. Okay, so Cardinal, you are in Australia. Okay, I actually want to get to Australia. I need to do more international traveling, man. I have not been across the Atlantic, which I want to do within the next like year or two. Do some more of that. I've been on a couple of cruises, around the Caribbean. I've been to Mexico, been to Canada, but I want to do more, traveling abroad, and get across the Atlantic and all that stuff. Let's see here. Thank you very much, Sir LT, my guy. Let's see here. Let's see. Fanon International Boxing says Aegon and King Robert Baratheon conquerors and usurpers make for bad role models, bad influences on kids. Yeah, I mean, you can say, look, you know what? Here's the thing. Robert Baratheon, remember, he wasn't fighting to become the king. He was fighting kind of out of pride, and a consequence of it was he became king because he actually was related to the Targaryens by blood, and so with them trying to keep the line of succession intact in terms of okay, well, because you got to think about it like this: like had they decided to call a great council after the fall of the Targaryens, you could have had another civil war on your hands, because I'm pretty sure the Lannisters would have thrown their hat in the ring. The Starks would have been like, no, what you guys slaughtered the last king, so we're not gonna let you be the king. You might have had Dorne who been like, hey, well, you know what, we signed a treaty to be under the realm with the Targaryens, so we're only gonna stay as part of the Seven Kingdoms with the Targaryens. So Robert Baratheon being king was kind of a great compromise. It wasn't that he was trying to be another Aegon. That was never his reason for warring against the Iron Throne. No one actually was warring against the Iron Throne to take it over, with the exception of maybe Tywin Lannister. Which I believe was the reason why he decided to push Cersei on to Robert. Because make no mistake, it was Tywin's idea that Cersei married Robert Baratheon. That was not Robert Baratheon's idea. Shout out to Jake Cruz. What's going on, man? Yeah, so, as much as you might want to call Robert a usurper, he wasn't necessarily a usurper, and you can say he's a bad influence, but him being a bad influence was totally separate from him being a usurper. He was a bad influence for many other reasons that had absolutely nothing to do with what was officially, well, not officially, but they wound up calling it Robert's Rebellion only because he became the king. Had anyone else become the king, it would have been someone else's rebellion or whatever may have you. So that's what happened with that one. Let's see here. are the atheists? I think you're trying to say, are there atheists in Westeros? Okay, here's the thing. There probably are atheists in Westeros, just as there have been atheists throughout time. But because of the society that they live in, I don't think that anyone would outwardly say that they don't believe in any gods because of the fact that you might have someone try to put them on trial for heresy. Because throughout time, when you've had societies where the government was very closely linked with whatever governing religious body may have been around, it was dangerous for anyone to say that they did not believe in the God of the religious body, which was closely tied to the government. So, unlike today, where in most, especially Western countries, as they call it, where you can have people who can outwardly say that they are atheists. If you lived during a medieval time, you couldn't say that. Period. Point blank. Even if you did not believe in whatever God, be it Jesus, be it Muhammad, be it whatever religious figure or whoever, there was a time where it would probably cost you your life if you lived in a society like Westeros and said that you did not believe in some form of God. Period. Point blank. Now, mind you, they tolerate the Northerners not being part of the Faith of the Seven only because they just weren't able to, like during the whole thing with Aegon's conquest, him not going and actually fighting a war in the North is probably the only reason why currently the North not being a part of the Faith of the Seven is tolerated. Everywhere else in the Seven Kingdoms, with the exception of the North and the Iron Islands, those are pretty much the only two places where people don't have to necessarily ascribe to the Faith of the Seven. But basically everywhere you have to believe in some kind of God. Period. Point blank. Let's see here. And Icy Spot says George R. R. Martin will be on the next episode of Finding Your Roots. If anyone is interested, he'll probably drop the release date of Winds of Winter or not. I'm going to say not. I am going to say not. Oh, man. Let's see here. Cardinal Doomsday wants to know if I haven't read Acton's book yet. I actually need to buy the book. I wasn't sure it was out. I haven't been checking on Facebook and YouTube in a while, so I didn't even know if his book had dropped yet. But you know what? After I get off of here, I will check that. Let's see here. J. Cruz says, until you had a scientific explanation, what would you have assumed created the planet? You see, but here's the thing, though, right? All right, if you're talking about in the context of, pre-scientific awakenings, etc., etc., I don't know that. I don't think that you would have had another explanation, because what else would you have been able to give? You wouldn't have been able to give anything else, yeah, like if you didn't have a scientific explanation. Now, mind you, remember, during medieval times, they did have scientists. So your maesters would have been like your scientists back during the medieval times or whatever. What they would have called them, like as a particular name, that part I couldn't tell you. I couldn't give you like a I couldn't give you a particular name as to what they would have been called. You know, but in terms of like they did have science. Let's just put it that way. They did have they did know about scientific discovery. It's just that like if you go back and if you read some of the stuff from history or even look at dramatizations of that kind of period on TV or in movies, it was just it just wasn't allowed. And yeah, so I wish I had a better answer for you, but when you lack the terminology to use, you really there's nothing else that you can say. Like if we didn't have science in the way that we use it today, not in terms of like agriculture, because agriculture is a science, astronomy is a science, astrology is a science, mathematics is a science. But if you didn't have um, experimentation in the way that we have, and people actively seeking to, I guess, to disprove fantastical things through science, you wouldn't have the vocabulary or the proper thought to put together to say, I don't believe in a God. Because you wouldn't have any alternative. So, yeah, I think that's the major thing is there just wouldn't have been an alternative for people to grasp onto. So, I mean, I hope I answered the question. I know it might have sounded like I was rambling, but I'm trying to give the best answer that I can, and like yeah, there's yeah, like I said, I think the best answer I can give is not having the vocabulary for it defines whether or not you can actually think the thoughts. You know, I just want to pose this to you. Speech and language is probably one of the greatest achievements of mankind. And I remember thinking years ago because I had an argument with someone because it was something about about college or I don't know, something about job opportunities. I don't remember exactly. But they basically told me that they scammed their way into getting into a college course. Now, mind you, I'm someone who's not thinking about doing any kind of scam because I'm like, look, you might get caught doing something like that and go to jail. I'm not trying to go to jail, period, point blank. So for me, not having those kind of thoughts in my head, that wasn't something that I could articulate because I couldn't think in those terms. Yes, it's creative. He was able to get into the class that he wanted to get into, but if that's not something that pops into your head because it's not part of your frame of reference of how you live life, then it's not an idea that's going to take root in your mind and be able to foster. So if you take that more down to a base level, imagine if you had no language. And now, like, all right, so if you ever read or saw the movie 1984, um, one of the premises behind uh, that whole thing was they were trying to take words, remove words out of language so that you would only ever be able to say yes to a request by the government, right? And ideas come from words, but if you don't have the words to express those ideas, then how do you properly, formulate ideas in your head if you have no way of putting them down? Like if there were only 100 words in your language, and someone introduced something to you that you had absolutely no words for, you're not going to be able to properly take that in and to be able to act upon it, because it's not going to be part of your frame of reference, you know. And yeah, I'm getting on a super long-winded tangent about this whole thing, but like this is just kind of how my mind works about all this stuff. Uh, you know, so yeah, man, forgive me if that went on a lot longer than that it probably should have. But yeah, man, listen, one day I gotta do something on deep thoughts, on my other channel or something like that, man. But all right, Blood Falcon Fantastic says the Brackens and Blackwoods also follow the old gods. Okay, so look, here's the thing: the Brackens and the Blackwoods, they are kind of a mixed bag because they still have God's Woods in they still have a God's Wood, but they aren't officially followers of the old gods. Yes, the Blackwoods, their sigil, uh, is the weirwood tree with all the ravens around it, but officially they are a part of the Faith of the Seven, but they still maintain some old god traditions because they are Firstman House, and I believe originally the Blackwoods. I believe originally the Blackwoods were from the north. It gets a little fuzzy on that history with me for a little bit. Shout out to Chrissy at Old Stones. Yeah, but it is like I said, the Blackwoods and the Brackens, little it's a little iffy with them because again they are one of they're one of the kind of last remaining Firstman houses south of south of the neck. I mean, and it's funny though because you have a bunch of houses that are Firstman houses, but there's a lot of them that don't identify with Firstman traditions. So like the Royces, the Danes, shit, who else would be considered Firstman House? I don't know about the Tarleys. I don't know if the Tarleys would be first. Nah, Tarleys are probably Andals. Um, Jeez, who else would be first men? See, I gotta look because because the thing about it is, with the whole thing of the Faith of the Seven coming in and the Andals, like a lot of people are kind of under the assumption that when the Andals invaded and they came and took over, that basically they wiped out all the firstmen houses except for the ones in the north because they didn't get there, and that's not true. The Lannisters are a first man house, even though, like, Lannister doesn't sound like a first man name. Lannister sounds more like an Andal name, at least to me. But the Royces are a first man house. You know, the Blackwoods, the Brackens, shit. The Gardeners from the Reach would have been a first man house because remember the Gardeners, you had the original High King of the First Men was Garth the Gardener. I don't know who that is, so I'm not answering the phone. Which I'm absolutely surprised that there's even anybody calling right now. Anyway, but yeah. So I gotta, maybe I'll do one on the Blackwoods and the Brackens. I'll do something on them since as Cardinal Doomsday stated, they are the Hatfields and McCoys of Westeros. Interesting little sidebar. So years ago, I used to work at a sunglass hut, which is, for those of you who are not in America or if they may not have them where you are, essentially it is a sunglass shop here in the United States. I don't know if they have them in other places in the world, but when I was working there, the store manager at the time told me that now mind you, she didn't have the name, but she did tell me she was let's see, she was either Hatfield or McCoy. I forget which one. And that was kind of a very interesting thing for me because I remember the Hatfields and McCoys being a thing from the Flintstones. So I didn't even think that was like a real thing. It's kind of like how people thought that the legend of Troy, the Trojan War, was a myth, and so I didn't think that was an actual thing. And when she was like, "Yeah, I like I said, I don't remember exactly which family she was from, but I was like, yo, hold on, what? I was like, wait, that's a real thing? Holy shit! Yeah, I'm like, wait, so like your family actually had a feud and was out there like killing people from this other family and like y'all had like a little mini civil war. Like, yeah, that is the craziest shit imaginable. Yeah, man. So I don't remember what her last name was. I remember her first name was Jamie. She was a very very nice woman. Very good boss to have. But it was just the craziest thing when she told me that. I was just like, holy shit. I didn't even know that was a real thing. And so to have someone who was actually part of one of those families. Oh my god. Yeah, it was the craziest thing possible, man. Oh man. Alright, let's see here. Alright, Fan and International Boxing Channel says prior to and alongside the scientific explanation, there was a concept of a creator. People would assume that the universe was created by something or someone else. Yeah, I mean, look, I do agree with that. The point that I was just trying to make was that there was a time where, there was a time that people wouldn't have had a concept that there wasn't a creator of some sort because they just wouldn't have had any other frame of reference. So for them, there wouldn't have been a time where they would have been able to say, "Oh, nah, I don't believe in a God," because that wouldn't have been in anyone's frame of mind to even think about. And again, like I said, then there was a time where even if they would have been, if they would have had those kind of thoughts, you're not going to say those out loud, because saying something like that out loud could have you, swarmed by a mob of people in your village and possibly executed. You know, so yeah, that's little different things with that. Shout out to Jerry the Targaryen, Steamboat, and Angel Reed. Long time no see for both of you guys. Let's see. Yeah, Angel, you're gonna have to go back to the beginning to learn more about Aegon. Honestly speaking, there was so much in here that they do not cover about him, and I'm guessing George did that on purpose. Obviously, you know what? Possibly, I might need to go back into this one to see if there is more written about. See if there's more written about him in terms of personality wise. Because it talks about how he's fought a couple of different people in single combat. I mean, but not extensively. It doesn't talk about things that he actually liked doing or him on a personal level. It was just more of like, okay, well, you know, he wasn't somebody that really got mad. He didn't really crack jokes. I mean, it doesn't talk about any kind of artistic endeavors. Said that he really didn't ride Balerion that much. The only time he really rode Balerion was going to war. And there goes phone again. Give me one sec. Sorry about that. Alright, let's see here. Alright, what was I saying? So, Aegon. Aegon, still don't know too much about him. We know about things that he has done, but about Aegon, the person, couldn't tell you. Don't know too much. They don't go into much detail about him as a person in particular. Let's see. Cardinal Doomsday says, I think Trojan War was a trade dispute. I mean, if we're talking about the actual Trojan War, could possibly be. The way that it's told in the Iliad, the way that it's told in the Iliad, it basically was Agamemnon's wounded pride. You had Paris. Was Paris or Hector? I don't know. One of the brothers from Troy who came over and absconded with Helen of. Now it's funny. She's called Helen of Troy. I'm not sure why she was called Helen of Troy when she was actually from Sparta. But essentially, you can't go to someone else's house and then leave with their spouse and think that their spouse is going to be cool with it and they're just going to roll over. But essentially, the reason why Agamemnon went to war was because his claim to the throne of Sparta was through Helen. So it's like, well, if Helen's not here, then we don't really recognize you as king. And that was the whole thing. That was the reason why he actually went to war in terms of in the Iliad. Whether or not that was the true reason in real life, no idea. Because I mean, other than if it wasn't for the Iliad, we we would have no knowledge of the Trojan War because there aren't any other writings that we know of about the Trojan War. Like there's nothing in any well, let's see, Rome wasn't around then, but nothing from Egyptian writings about the Trojan War, and the Trojan society was destroyed, so no writings from them. So, let's see here. Oh, and it was Paris. That's right, Hector. See, I'm thinking about that horrible movie with Brad Pitt, where Brad Pitt is standing outside the walls of Troy, yelling at Hector to come out and fight him because Hector killed his cousin. Let's see here. Angel, glad you stumbled onto the videos, and again with the phone. One moment. All right, so where did I leave off at? Uh, oh, Jerry, you are a funny guy. Jerry, you are absolutely hilarious. Yeah, Lord and Savior David Benioff. Yeah, I know whose poison cup you've been drinking out of lately, Jerry. All right. Let's see. Shout out to Connie Super. Helen Troy, the ship. I'm sorry, the face that launched 1,000 ships. Yeah, it's kind of funny because when you think about it, right? Like I said, the only reason why, according to the Iliad, it's like yes, he did it. Agamemnon went there out of pride, right? He definitely decided to go to war out of pride, but again, it was mainly because of his claim to the throne. His claim to the throne was only solidified because of his marriage to Helen. So, with Helen not being there, the people of Sparta did not consider him to legitimately be the king. All right. So, do we have any more questions? If not, I'm going to wrap this up. And let me just put this in the chat. Questions. Oops. Go. Give that a second to populate before I go on any more tirades. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. Menelaus was yeah, okay. See, my bad. It's been a while since I read up on the Trojan War. Yeah, Menelaus was Agamemnon was his brother. He needed Agamemnon because Agamemnon. Menelaus needed Agamemnon because Agamemnon had all of the military, and basically Sparta wasn't going to not fund the expedition. Sparta wasn't going to put up the military for it. You know. Thank you, IC Spots, as always. Thank you very much. All right, well, since it's looking like we're kind of done on questions, I'm going to wrap up for today. I will be back hopefully Thursday, but if not, sometime next week. And we're going to be discussing the next in the line of Targaryen kings, not being Aenys Targaryen, who was somebody who I absolutely, yeah, he was worse than Aegon. I personally couldn't stand him, but then again, Aegon's kids were the worst. Both of his Sons of the Dragon, were absolutely horrible. Yeah, you know, and it's just it's just all bad. It's all bad. And then we're gonna get to Viserys the first. No, is it Viserys or Jaehaerys? I don't know. I gotta go through the whatchamacallit. Anyway, Cardinal, hey man. See you later. I'm actually about to wrap this up anyway. Anyway, thank you to everyone who joined me live today. I know this isn't the normal day that I do this, but you know, thank you for joining anyway. Thank you to all those who will check me out later, if you're even still around at this point. And like I said, I will be back next week sometime with another one. Hopefully, I'll be back to my regularly scheduled day, Thursday at either 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern. All right, that being said, you guys already know the deal. Rate, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, and come back for more. That has been my time. This is Don Willie saying, Vela Dohiris, and I will see you for the next one.